You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike.
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike of the world famous Downeast Mike podcast, coming to you live from Downeast, Maine. Not really live. We're in the midst of a 72-hour meteorological event, and in Maine that means that it's April 5th and it's snowing continuously. We've got about a foot of snow and it keeps coming down, and it's supposed to snow for quite a while, but we're going to roll with it because we don't have much choice. This is Downeast Mike episode 121, news and commentary for Friday, April 5th, 2024. We got the year right, we got the day right. That's about it, I guess. Our motto here is some of this is whimsy and some of it's true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. That's our disclaimer in case you hear something that triggers you. In today's episode, we have Flight 242 going down. That was in 1977. We have stranded clammers on the coast of Maine. You don't want to be a stranded clammer, or clam with a strand. J. Allen Hynek in a Maine UFO story from 1966. An electric railroad in Camden from 1892. Those are our highlights, and we should get to some of the more interesting things also from 1892, because that was quite the year. We'll skip over the word of the day because we had one, but we forgot it quickly. Illness of the instant. It's more related to the ongoing problems of snow removal. Being old and moving snow. That'll always give you some sort of an illness. On this day in 1977, there was a terrible plane crash in Georgia, still the most significant plane crash in Georgia, the state of Georgia's history. About 67 people were killed when a Flight 242 went down. They were in a thunderstorm, and they lost the jet engines. First they lost one, and then they lost the second one. And they looked for another airport where they could land. And instead of being able to reach any airport nearby, they were finally without power. The pilot put them down on a highway, and the wing clipped the gas station. That set fire. It was an unbelievable crash scene. But what's probably most dramatic about it is that anybody survived that plane crash, and perhaps that's a testament to the pilot's skill that they were at least able to land it somewhere on a highway. But it changed a lot of regulations and engine design, a whole bunch of other things, because until then they didn't realize that the jet engine would flood out with too much water in it. But we had a little bit of some of the dialogue there. It was picked up on the flight recorder. It's quite interesting. In the background, flight attendant Sandy Ward could be heard making an emergency announcement. Check to see that all carry-on baggage is stowed completely underneath the seat in front of you. In the unlikely event that there is a need for an emergency landing, we do ask that you please grab your ankles, and I will scream from the rear of the aircraft. There is nothing to be alarmed, but we have lost temporary power at times, so in the event that there's an unlikely need for an emergency and you do hear us holler, please grab your ankles. Thank you for your cooperation, and please relax. These are precautionary measures only. Now, one of the other interesting things found in that FAA report and from the flight recorder are some of the dialogue of the stewardesses, and one was advising the other to take their shoes off and stow them away carefully, because with just their bare feet, they would have more gripping power with it being able to hold into their seat. So the captain's talking. He says, we're trying to get up there, said Captain McKenzie, noting that they had fallen below the altitude that had been suggested. OKR 242, we just got our windshield busted, and we'll try to get back up to 15. We're at 14. On board the plane, the first officer Keel lined up with the highway, and he extended the landing gear. To air traffic control, McKenzie uttered one final transmission. "We're putting it on the highway. We're down to nothing." "Oh, Christ, Bill, I hope we can do it," said Keel. I've got it. I'm going to land right over that guy." "And there's a car ahead," McKenzie warned. "I got it, Bill. I've got it now. I got it." "Okay, don't stall it. We're going to do it right here." And in the cabin, the flight attendant shouted for the passengers to brace for impact. "Bend down and grab your ankles." "I've got it," Keel exclaimed. And ultimately, 63 people did die on board the plane, 9 on the ground, but 23 people survived that crash. And if you ever saw pictures of it, Flight 242, you ever seen pictures of that plane crash, you'd wonder how anyone survived that. That was in 1977. So we're going to move on to a lighter thing here because this ad is remarkable. We found this in 1977. There was a wig trade-in sale. Now through Saturday, your old wig is worth $5 towards the purchase of one of our 2 best-selling $19.98 wigs. The Style A is a short, pre-curled, and adjustable. And then size B's is the same as that, but it's got a tapered back. It says, "Look your best for Easter," one of our stylish new wigs. And that was at Freezy's, downtown in the airport mall. That's with trade-in $14.98 for a wig. And plus you got some stamps for a future purchase if you need to buy another wig. 2 clamming parties were rescued. Despite the gale warning issued on Sunday, 2 area groups decided to go clamming in the Andrews Island area near Rockland. One was rescued by a Coast Guard 44-foot boat that was on the surf boats. The other was found by helicopter Monday morning. Both parties spent the night trying to keep warm on an unusually cold spring night with heavy winds blowing. The Coast Guard got their first indication of a heavy night's work at 7:45 p.m. when Harold Black of Tennant's Harbor called to report a flare sighting in the Hart's Neck area. A rescue boat patrolled the area but never discovered the origin of the signal. Then, around 9:45 p.m., Charles Steringer of Warren called to report an overdue party clamming on Andrews Island. And this just to remind you is to go to get little mollusks out of the mud. You have to be pretty desperate. In the party were Rick Young, Ernest Robinson, all from the Warren area. The Coast Guard craft was diverted from the Tennant's Harbor area to search the Andrews Island and Muscle Ridge area. Because if you're going to go clamming in Maine, you want to go to Muscle Ridge. The Coast Guard boats were hampered by heavy winds. They searched until daylight, where the party was found on the west side of Dick's Island. A helicopter dispatched from Cape Cod was turned back when they were found. The Coast Guard reported the party burned their shattered boat to keep warm and to try to signal for help. In trying to make for the Dick's Island beach for safety, the Clammers boat was smashed on the rocks. A Coast Guard rescue boat took the party to Owl's Head, where they had left their car and trailer. Before the party reached Owl's Head, the Coast Guard got a second call from Mrs. Julie Benner of Rockland. She reported another group of clammers overdue from Andrews Island. The helicopter, which had headed back to Mass, was turned back again to search for the second party. And the party consisted of Alan Benner, Thurin Benner, and Roland Benner. I wonder if they're related. All believed to be from Rockland. The helicopter swept the area and found the Benner party huddled on Andrews Island trying to keep warm. They had decided to stay where they were and wait out the storm Sunday night. Now, you would think they'd have like a Clammers refuge shack on Andrews Island and so many clammers stuck there. Well, in a story almost like from today, a tree falls and it breaks the roof at a hen house in Unity. Misfortune struck again at the residence of Ralph Batchelor on the Bangor Road when a 75-foot pine tree smashed through the roof of his new chicken house 4 p.m. on Sunday. That's when trees tend to go through your chicken house. Batchelor estimated the damage at $1,000. The tree ripped through the aluminum roof, breaking 2 trusses and killing 100 of Batchelor's 30,000 caged layers. Batchel had completed the chicken house in December after his first one had burned or destroyed by fire last June 7th, and that one killed 20,000 chickens. No one was injured in Sunday's mishap, and Batchelor has insurance to cover the damage. Members of the Unity Fire Department were called to the scene in case of an electrical fire. A chicken roast. We won't go much into this headline, but Anwar Sadat was asking for human rights for Palestinians on this day in 1977. They were hoping for peace in the Middle East in the second half of 1977. Just like today, still going on over there. Let's roll it back to 1892. And on this day, Mr. M.V. Greer of Morrill is getting out again after a severe attack of pneumonia. It's the fourth time he's been sick with it. 2 years ago, he had the grip, and he's not been able to do much labor since. As Hiram Greer was riding home, this is the Greers of that area apparently, as Hiram Greer was riding home from Belmont last Thursday, his horse became frightened, upset the wagon, and cleared himself and ran home. The horse broke away from the wagon and ran home. Mr. Greer escaped uninjured. There were a lot of horse and wagon accidents back then. Henry Thomas and Stillman White, those are some old names, huh? They went to Taunton, Mass. Last week where they found employment in the insane hospital. An insane hospital, I guess, was a place to work, and it made local news. We had another tidbit here in the local gossip column. The frost is coming out of the ground in many places in the road, which makes it very bad traveling. This is nearly 3 weeks earlier than it generally comes. So in 1892, the road were starting to thaw out, and they were noting then that it was much earlier than usual. R.C. Moores was on the sick list. About 30 of A.C. Vanner's friends gathered at his place Friday afternoon and made war on his woodpile. 30 fellas chopping up wood could probably put up quite a bit of wood. Ohio farmers who have commenced plowing report finding myriads of grasshoppers just below the surface, and all predict a scourge. 17-year scourge of grasshoppers just below the surface. What do they do down there beneath the ground anyway? These things that can sleep for 17 years. People's Corner, this is out of Wellington, Maine, and it's to the editors of Lewiston Journal. Seeing in your paper that some families are going to Manitoba from this state, I would like to say a few words of warning to them. I worked on the CPRR, so that'd be Canadian Pacific Railroad. This is 1892. And I know all about that country west of Winnipeg. It's cold, bleak, barren country. The winters are long and cold. And I have seen ice strong enough to hold a man's weight, frozen as late as 22nd of May, and ice in the ponds fully 6 inches thick the 18th day of November. Wood is very scarce and water poor. I have been in quite a number of the western states, and any of them are way ahead of Manitoba, but Maine is good enough for me. There was a letter from Jay Grant to the local paper telling people don't go to Manitoba. Probably good advice today, too. They were digging for gold in Somerville, 1892. On this day, the owners of the Somerville gold mine will renew operations on their property next week. They have now got a clear title to their land so that they can proceed with the assurance that whatever they discover will be theirs. They have sunk a shaft 20 feet deep into the ledge, and the ore is, what are they saying, $10 for silver and $5 for gold. It looks backwards, continuing to increase in value with the depth. Dynamite is used for blasting, as there's so much graphite in the rock that powder is not quick enough to secure the best results. Mr. Howard Bruce of Augusta, who is one of the owners, is very hopeful. The dirt about the ledge is of a rich yellow color, and in it are found bits of rock resembling clinkers. Old miners who have seen it say the dirt is exactly like that found around numerous and silver-bearing rock are the Pacific Coast mines. So they think if the soil's yellow looking, it's got gold in it. Okay. The rush westward. Today's travel through Bangor from the British provinces. They're noting here that in Bangor, Maine, 163 second class, 84 first class passengers, and 13 babes in arms, over 300 pieces of baggage inspected. It's the record of the train from the Maritime provinces Tuesday morning. With the engines of 10 years ago, this train would have been a double header. Great is the rush. So train travel from the Maritimes through Bangor, Maine, very popular at this time. We found a story about salmon here. The river seems full of salmon, and some longshoremen say shad are here. Salmon frequently jump, and this afternoon one got as far up as the Kenduskeag stream as the post office. There are no salmon traps down yet. So few are caught, although 4 have been taken since yesterday morning in smelt nets. 3 went to Boston, and a 19-pounder caught in Bangor was sold here. Several years ago, 250,000 shad were let go in the Penobscot, and if they have returned, it means thousands of dollars to the river fishermen. L.A. Daw of Searsport caught 2 salmon in his weirs at Sears Island Friday night, the first of the season, weighing 19 and 21 pounds. Those are big fish, and that was in Searsport in 1892. Russians were going at it again. This is same time. If the dispatches from St. Petersburg are to be relied upon, some German genius has solved the problem of aerial navigation. More than this, there is assured a new departure in the methods of modern warfare, as well as a new and invaluable method for the acquisition of desired information and preparing for war. It's a long way of saying the Russian skies are navigated by German balloons, which hover over the Tsar's fortresses on the frontier. The topography of the adjacent country is taken, and even at night, the remotest parts of fortifications are viewed by powerful glasses by the aid of strong electric searchlights thrown from the safe distance occupied by these investigators. They are beyond the range of gunshots and pursue their purpose with aggravating deliberation, laying bare the resources and defenses of a rival nation with which war is not improbable. Nice to know nothing's changed in Russia and Germany. The electric railroad will not go through Camden this year at a hearing on Monday before the Camden selectmen. They were talking about the use of the streets in Rockland for Rockland, Thomaston, and Camden for the electric railroad. George McCumber of Augusta, who was the president of the road, presented 225 in favor, and there were 291 opposed. Under the law, the selectmen still have the right to grant the use of the streets, but as the road is now under contract to the town line, half a mile from the Camden post office, the opposition prefer to have it stay there 1 year and then possibly letting it in if desirable in every way. And of course today they're talking about putting electric railroads in. Let's jump on to something we're a little more frivolous here. Oh, interesting though. We have some UFO stories from Maine. This is out of Newcastle, Maine, April 17th and 19th, 1966. And there were 3 witnesses. They have observed up to 15 objects in the sky at various times. The objects turn, spin, and revolve in a circular direction, darting freely at times, and then slow down at times for a while, and then race across the sky. The objects appear to be arranged in a pattern, spaced apart evenly, appearing and disappearing, and they're showing red flashes across the sky, more appearing after the shooting of the flashes. The objects are seen at all angles during the times they are watched. And that was Project 10,073 record, I think Project Blue Book. And we found that online. Photos, no. And physical evidence, no. And they're from the ground. And they watched these for 2 hours. They watched these objects go around. And then from 1968, we found one out of Fryeburg, Maine, and this is Lieutenant Colonel Quintanilla, and he's on the UFO files and the Project Blue Book stuff. He wrote to the Fryeburg Police Department. He says, the Aerial Phenomena Office is in receipt of an unidentified flying object report from Fryeburg, Maine, which occurred on the 2nd of March, 1968 at approximately 9 p.m. The duration of the sighting was 30 minutes. The witness stated that he observed a fluorescent blue object that looked like the Starship Enterprise from the television program Star Trek. And asking the Fryeburg Police Department here, did you receive any reports of unusual objects for this date? We would appreciate your comments as to a possible cause for this sighting. Thank you for your assistance. Hector Quintanilla, Jr., Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force Chief of the Aerial Phenomenon Office. Production Directorate. Well, that sounds really official, doesn't it? Here's another one. This is from, can't quite read it, 1954, and this was out of Heartland, Maine. They saw oblong shape, larger in silver with a dome on top with a flashing light. It was still, then it disappeared straight up. 2 F-86s were scrambled. They searched for 30 minutes. They found no result, but they did know it's possible same sighting as Pittsfield, Maine. They saw it for about 15 minutes. No pictures or anything. But that was interesting. They scrambled 2 F-86s to go check this thing out. 1955, 30 miles northwest of Brownville, Maine. They saw something that was round. It changed colors from red to green to yellow, no sound. It dropped and it rose. They watched it for 2 hours, and that was determined to be the Arcturus, and that's the fourth brightest object in the sky. So they were just looking at astronomical phenomena there. And then from J. Allen Hynek, he wrote a little report. He reported a phone call to miss, and then they blacked it out. In Melrose, Mass., which is just outside of Boston, this phone call took place on November 30th, 1966. Since it's so close to Boston, she's going to get in touch with my daughter, and a full and detailed report will be made out. In the meantime, conversation brought out several things. First of all, this is J. Allen Hynek writing about a UFO report from Maine. First of all, that the report was made to the Topsom Air Force Base near Brunswick. Then they sent out men and the people involved. There were several witnesses, gave detailed reports that the witnesses reported that the Air Force people didn't bother taking any notes, despite the fact that the reports of the witnesses were quite detailed. The witnesses stated that the Topsom radar had acquired the objects and that we should trace them down, and because a distant relative of the lady reporting, Miss So-and-so, is a brigadier general in the Air Force, Brigadier General blah blah, the name had some effect, and Topsom called Bangor, and Bangor reportedly sent down a plane with which the objects apparently played hide and seek. These were not just stray lights, but the lights were reported to be attached to a solid object, or the solid object was never seen. The principal object was oval, somewhat like a top, and there was another one in a cigar shape, looking somewhat like a child's balloon. I established that the objects moved with respect to the stars, and in 2 or 3 hours, one object went from the northeast to the northwest. She said that many people in the room saw them, but many people were not sufficiently impressed to want to do anything about it. She herself spent quite a bit of money, she says, on phone calls to try and arouse interest and get somebody, as she said, to do something about it. She said that the object would hover as the plane got close to it, and the object would suddenly dart away in a sort of cops and robbers type of chase. She went to hear a lecture by Raymond Fowler of NICAP, and she said she did not mention anything about it in the question period afterward because there were so many people making many statements that she did not want to join them, or I should say appear to join them. That was a report from J. Allen Hynek about a UFO sighting in 1966, Topsom, Maine. Many witnesses, Planes dispatched, but they didn't find anything. Let's see, do we have one more? Here we do. 1957, 20 miles south of Portland, Maine, and it's from a B-47 crew. The B-47 crew sighted a small object somewhat similar to a star while flying at 35,000 feet. The object was an unvarying heading of about 170 degrees. It did not appear to gain or lose altitude. And in the comment section it says, time, appearance, bearings, etc. indicate that the object was Sputnik, the Soviet satellite. Check with orbital tracks and Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory confirmed this assumption. Isn't that interesting? A B-47 crew seeing Sputnik from 35,000 feet, and that was in 1957. All right, I guess that's about it for today, actually. We'll round it out here. So we didn't have an animal to talk about or an insect. I think we're a little bit overwhelmed by all the snow that's still falling down here. But spring is around the corner. There'll be some sunny days ahead. And until next time, this is Downeast Mike, wishing you and your loved ones a day that's full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you. I'm a rock star, and nothing gets between me and the sun. And nothing's gonna stop me from having my fun, 'cause I'm a rock star. That's what I am. Planets roll over for me, umbra penumbra. The solar shadow darkens, but you know I'm still here, 'cause I'm a rock star. And they can't discern, so they fire up CERN. It's knowledge they want, so it's got to be earned. A little eclipse, well, you don't scare me. I'll see you laughing on the other side, 'cause I'm a rock star. As above, so below, it's legend, you know. Here comes the sun, there goes the moon. It's my eclipse time.